Hey guys, Jessica here. So today I wanted to talk about emergency funds, what they are, why they're important, how much money you should have in one, and maybe most practically, how to build one. Before we get started, I wanted to call out one thing that's been kind of bothering me. Everybody talks about how emergency funds are really important for emergencies, and it's true, they are. But one of the things that very few people talk about is that actually emergency funds are one of the best investment strategies as well, and they help you increase returns from your investments over a lifetime. I will talk a little bit more about how all of this stuff works in a little bit, but it's for this reason that emergency funds make sense for everyone. No matter your specific situation, what your risk tolerance is, an emergency fund is super, super important, and let's get into it. So to start off, what an emergency fund is. And an emergency fund is what it sounds like. It's a pool of cash that you have set aside, sitting there, that you can draw down on if an emergency happens. So things like one-off medical expenses, or you get laid off from work and you need some time to sort of find that next thing. But it's also, as I mentioned, not just for emergencies. It's also for just one-off needs of cash that are sort of outside of the ordinary. An example of this would be you're moving apartments, and to start with the new apartment, you need to put down an extra month's of rent as deposit. That kind of extra lump sum of cash could also be a good use of an emergency fund. And the reason why it's important is that by having cash set aside for scenarios like this, there are three main benefits. The first benefit is that we know we can handle that situation. Whatever it is, if it's an emergency, if it's just a one-off need for cash, we know we're covered. The second thing is that we don't have to borrow money, which only compounds the situation and makes it worse. And then the third thing is that we don't have to pull from our investments, which allows us to be more risk-taking in our investments and as a result, hopefully get higher returns. Let me explain that last one a little bit more. Knowing that you don't have to touch your investments in the short term, even if you have an emergency, means that you can confidently invest for the long term. Over the long term, investment returns are smoothed out, they're much more guaranteed, and it's that short-term behavior of pulling money out of the market, putting money back into the market that is one of the biggest drags on investment returns. And it's this reason that by avoiding that kind of short-term movement with your investments, that you're able to juice returns over a lifetime. And so in terms of how much money you need in the fund, for most people, it's to try to target 3 to 6 months of expenses. And if your income is a little bit more variable, then try to target, on the more conservative side of things, maybe 9, even 12 months. And by the way, it's important to mention actually that we're not trying to replace 3 to 6 months of income. We're actually just wanting enough to have 3 to 6 months of expenses. So the things that are most important, like rent or food, and not even things that are more optional in nature, like taking a trip to Europe, you don't necessarily need to have that in your emergency fund. And then, so practically speaking, what does that mean? If you're spending $2,500 a month on basics like rent and food, then you're looking at an emergency fund of roughly $10,000 to $12,000. And so then, in terms of how to create that fund, the first thing that you should be doing is taking a look at your expenses. This allows you to do a couple of things. The first one is, as I mentioned just now, what you want to do is figure out what is your target number. Which of these expenses are the most critical versus which of these are more optional that you could potentially cut if you were out of a job for a couple of months. And the second thing is to actually, easily see where money is being spent, and trying to spot areas where, things that you're spending money on that are maybe less important to you that you could cut back on, and then take that money and divert it into your emergency fund. Another good idea for building the emergency fund is to just take some of your paycheck and direct deposit it straight into your emergency fund. We did a separate video on how to sort of set up your finances on autopilot, set up that direct deposit. So I'll link to that up here. You can go check that out in terms of how to get that done. And the last thing I wanted to say on this is that building an emergency fund takes time, and every little bit counts. If you're able to consistently put $10, $20 into this emergency fund, that adds up in a big way. And lastly, where should you keep your emergency fund? That part's easy. You should put it in a high-yield savings account that's FDIC insured. Our favorite at the moment is HM Bradley, which is FDIC insured, but it's got the highest interest rate that we've seen on the market so far. And on on top of that, they have a great app and website that actually has a bunch of tools specifically for helping you build up an emergency fund. I think the one downside is that they're invite only at the moment, so see if one of your friends has an invite that you can snag. And that's it. If you're about to create your emergency savings fund, I hope you found this video helpful. And if you already have an emergency fund, it'd be great if you could leave us a comment below. Let us know any of your tips in terms of how you built that up. And before we end this video, I wanted to call out that you can also sign up for Uprise. I'll link to us in the description below. But basically, we can help take a look at your specific situation and figure out a ton related to personal finances. And specifically, with respect to emergency funds, we can help you figure out, hey, what's that right target number for you? What bank you should be using, stuff like that. And we do it completely for free. On average, we've put, $100K in net worth back into people's pockets. Other than that, if you'd like to see more videos like this one, please give us a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and click that bell for notifications. See you guys next time.